flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to the provisions of Section 2.68.030 of the Metropolitan Code of Laws, notice is hereby given that if you're not satisfied with the decision made by the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission, you may appeal the decision by petitioning for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. Again, I apologize that we do not have a sufficient number of commissioners today to conduct our meeting. We will reschedule our meeting, and it will either be specially set or added. Today's agenda will be added to next month's meeting in May. Mr. Love, I know you've spent a lot of time and effort to appear here today electronically. Again, I apologize that we are having to put off your hearing as well. Billy, there is one matter that we can take up as consideration of Rule 6.72.070 regarding quarterly fees for taxi cabs.
A question came up, and this does not require commission action today. A question came up about quarterly fees. Taxi cabs pay fees annually per cab and quarterly by cab. Historically, in September or in August, they pay the annual fee, which is $75 per cab.
So they're going to have to reschedule
And
for next month.
like, Kevin, could you mute him? And then quarterly, they pay $45 per cab for an annual fee of $255. The question came up with the companies, as you know, we've put on a lot of taxi cabs. There's been a lot of movement from company to company. Are companies required to pay for taxi cab positions that are not currently filled? We all agree that they have to pay the annual fee as a part of the certificate of convenience and necessity. But the question becomes quarterly. So I ask legal. The cabs companies have asked the question, so I ask legal to offer an opinion, and Ms. Costonis would share that with the audience. Again, it doesn't take commission approval, and hopefully Ms. Turner will walk in the door. So.
Okay. I would clarify that my opinion is to my client, which is staff in the commission, not to the
Correct.
person who inquired. But the provision is 672.070 of the Metropolitan Code, and it says, persons granted certificates of public convenience and necessity under this article shall keep the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission advised quarterly of the cabs being insured and operated, and shall quarterly pay to the Metropolitan Transportation Licensing Commission a fee of $45 for each of its cabs in operation, including those vehicles which, as of the reporting date, may be temporarily out of commission for repair, etc., as a condition precedent to the operation of such vehicle as a taxi cab, and failure to comply herewith shall subject such person to the penalty provided in Section 1.01.030. When I read that, I thought that the phrase as a condition precedent to the operation of such vehicle as a taxi cab was very significant, because I think that can only refer back to the payment of the quarterly fee, because that's the mandated subject of that language. And so what I thought that meant was that if you have a cab that's not in operation, you don't have to pay the quarterly fee for it. But if you don't, and then you at some later date want to put it back into operation, you haven't met the condition precedent. So you could, I suppose, pay your back delinquent quarterly fees at that point in time and get up to date, and then once you're current, then presumably the condition would be satisfied. But if you don't do that, if you put it back into operation with the quarterly fees remaining in the delinquent status, it appears to me that that triggers the penalty language, and failure to comply herewith shall subject such person to the penalty provided in section 1.01.030. And what 1.01.030 provides is that a violation of any Metro Code provision not within a penalty not otherwise specified shall be punished by a penalty not to exceed $50. And then it goes on to say that every day of that violation shall be a separate offense. And so basically, if someone were to do that, if they were to put a permitted vehicle back in operation while in a delinquent state on their quarterly fee, I think they would be in violation of the Metro Code and therefore subject to a penalty of $50 a day for each day that they operate that vehicle while the quarterly fees are in a delinquent status.
So to make sure I understand this, the annual fee is not in question. From a quarterly standpoint, taxi cab companies, if they're assigned 100 cabs, for them to be in compliance, they would pay the $45 per cab. If they chose not to do that, at which time they wanted to say they wanted 95 of those cabs, those other 5 cabs, in order to be compliant, they would have to pay for every quarter from the point they were out of service to the point they come back into service. So in a year's time, there will be 4 quarters, 8 quarters, 2 years, and so forth. Is that correct?
If they wanted to resume them in operation.
Correct.
Yes.
So they would only have to pay the back fees if they ever used them again?
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. At this time, we're going to close our meeting, and again, I apologize that we do not have a quorum in order to conduct the remainder of the hearing. Thank you.
No motion?
We can't make a motion.
Oh.